Wow, stories.
Am I the idiot for refusing to babysit my nephew and getting taken to court? By my sister, I'm a 23-year-old child-free woman, and my sister's 30 with a 4-year-old son. She's a single mom, and her ex-husband is not in the picture and has no contact with her or the kid. I'm going to get straight to the point. That kid is a nightmare to be around. It's not his fault. It's my sister's fault. He clearly has behavioral and mental health disorders, even at his young age. However, my sister is very ableist and refuses to accept that her son has problems. The kid screams bloody unalive whenever something doesn't go his way and cries when he's overwhelmed. He also has meltdowns to certain sounds and textures. I don't blame the kid for these issues, but my sister's refusal to get him treatment or help makes him a nightmare to be around. As a result, I don't babysit the kid when my sister asks, more like demands, I do so. This causes a lot of fights between us and our family. I have a friend, a 23-year-old man, who's married to a wonderful lady who is 22 years old, and they have a baby boy together who just turned 1. Yes, they got married and had him young, but it's not my place to judge them. This past weekend, they asked me to babysit for them, and I agreed for a few reasons. Their kid is calm, well-behaved, and a good kid/toddler/baby to be around. I love babysitting him. Also, they asked me nicely and understood that I might say no because I'm child-free. They were polite about their request. A thing about me is that if you ask me to do something politely, even if it's something I wouldn't usually agree to, I'd probably do it because you were nice and polite. So for these reasons, I happily agreed to babysit the boy. My sister also asked me to babysit her son that day, so she could have a day to herself, and I refused and told her I was already babysitting for my friends. She was pissed, to say the least. She said a few comments about how I was in butt and not a good sister, but I thought she dropped it after that. This past weekend, while I was watching the baby, my sister started banging on my door. I looked through the window and saw that she had her kid in a care bag with her, and I knew she was trying to drop him off and make me babysit. She was banging on the door, yelling at me and calling me heartless and a baby hater, while I was holding a baby, ironic, and that I better open up and do my sisterly duties. I put the baby in a different room to keep him from getting scared by the noise and told my sister through the window to leave, or I would call the cops. She started cursing for a solid 5 minutes before she finally left. I had the whole thing on my doorbell camera and sent it to the family group chat. Surprisingly, my whole family is on my sister's side. Now for an update. She keeps arguing with me about how I'd rather babysit a kid not even related to me than my nephew. I reminded her that her kid is a nightmare to be around, but she keeps saying that for family, you help out. My sister has been cold since and keeps sending me text messages to provoke me into arguing with her more. She has also started saying some pretty ableist and nasty things towards my friend's wife. My friend's wife is on the spectrum and has borderline personality disorder, and my sister keeps saying that she should have been sterilized and never should have passed her issues to her kid. By the way, her kid has shown none of the signs that autistic infants usually show, so I don't know what my sister is on. I will admit that I do feel a bit guilty because I never consider babysitting my nephew, but I jumped at the opportunity to babysit my friend's kid. My sister dad, 66, mom, 64, and brother, 33, are all calling me a jerk and saying that I'm just using the child-free label to avoid family responsibility. I need advice on how to get my family to see my perspective on this. How can I explain to them that the issue isn't the idea of babysitting, but it's the behavior of the kid? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Stop justifying, arguing, defending, and explaining your number. Do not give excuses like, I'm already babysitting another child. Nobody is owed your time or labor. Simply say, no, I can't do that. And if they won't accept it, hang up on them. Your sister's neglect of her child's needs is shameful. One day soon, she will have much, much bigger problems than not being able to find a sitter for him. If she plans to send her child to public school, her neglect will become extremely obvious when he is unable to manage himself and she tells mandated reporters she refuses to get him the help he needs. Comment 2. You need to be honest with your family about what a nightmare the child is. Ask them to babysit. If they disagree, then block the idiots. Make sure your sister does not have a key. Get security cameras and block her. Life is too short and family can be idiots. I prune ruthlessly those who cause disquiet in my life. Now, for the update. Thanks for all the comments from my last post. So, here's what happened over the past 2 weeks. After the whole door banging incident, things got even more tense. My sister kept up with her nasty texts, and it was getting unbearable. I tried to ignore her, but it was hard. My parents and brother were also on my case, saying I was being selfish and not acting like family. They kept bringing up how I was willing to babysit for my friends, but not for my own nephew. It was like they couldn't understand the difference between a well-behaved kid and one with serious behavioral issues. One day, I got a call from my mom. She said they were having a family meeting and I had to be there. I knew it was going to be a disaster, but I went anyway. When I got there, my sister was already yelling about how I was a terrible aunt and how I didn't care about family. My parents and brother were nodding along and it felt like I was on trial. I tried to explain my side, but they wouldn't listen. They kept saying that family comes first and that I should be helping my sister out no matter what. Then, my sister dropped a bombshell. She said she was going to take legal action to make me babysit her kid. I didn't even know that was a thing, but she said she had talked to a lawyer and that they could file for some kind of family responsibility order. I was shocked and scared. I didn't want to be forced to take care of a kid I couldn't handle, but I also didn't want to go through a legal battle with my own sister. I decided to talk to my own lawyer to see if what she was saying was true. The lawyer told me that while it's rare, there are cases where family members can be legally obligated to help out, especially if the parent can prove they have no other options. My sister could argue that since I'm child-free and have the time, I should be helping her. The lawyer said it would be a tough case for her to win, but it wasn't impossible. This whole situation was stressing me out, and I started to feel really guilty. I kept thinking about my nephew and how he didn't ask for any of this. I knew he needed help, but I also knew I wasn't the right person to give it to him. I decided to try one more time to talk to my sister and see if we could come to some kind of agreement without going to court. I went to her house and tried to have a calm conversation. I told her I understood she was struggling and that I wanted to help, but I couldn't handle her son's behavior. I suggested we look into getting him some professional help, like therapy or counseling. She blew up at me, saying I was trying to label her kid and that he didn't need any help. She said I was just making excuses to avoid my responsibilities. At this point, I was at my wit's end. I didn't know what else to do. I decided to take a break from my family and focus on my own mental health. I blocked my sister's number and told my parents and brother that I needed some space. I felt bad, but I didn't see any other way to protect myself from all the negativity. During this time, I spent a lot of time with my friends and their baby. It was a nice break from all the drama, and it made me realize how much I enjoyed being around well-behaved kids. It also made me think about my own childhood and how different things were. My sister and I used to be close, but things changed after she got married and had her son. She became more stressed and less patient, and it was like she was a different person. I remembered a time when we were kids and she stood up for me when some older kids were bullying me. She was always the protective big sister, and I looked up to her. But now it felt like she was the one bullying me, and it hurt. I miss the sister I used to know, and I wish things could go back to the way they were. But before I get too deep into that, let me tell you what happened next. My sister actually went through with her threat and filed for a family responsibility order. I got the court papers in the mail, and I felt like my world was falling apart. I couldn't believe she would go this far just to make me babysit her kid. I knew I had to fight it, but I also knew it was going to be a long and stressful process. I talked to my lawyer again, and we started preparing for the case. I gathered all the evidence I could to show that I wasn't capable of taking care of my nephew, including the doorbell camera footage and text messages from my sister. I also got statements from my friends and their family about how I was a good babysitter for their kid, but struggled with my nephew's behavior. The court date finally came, and it was one of the most nerve-wracking days of my life. My sister was there with her lawyer, and she looked so angry. I felt like I was betraying her, but I knew I had to stand up for myself. The judge listened to both sides, and it was clear that my sister was trying to paint me as a selfish person who didn't care about family. But my lawyer did a great job of showing that I had legitimate reasons for not being able to take care of my nephew. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor. He said that while families should help each other out, it wasn't fair to force someone to take on a responsibility they couldn't handle. I felt a huge sense of relief, but Also a lot of sadness. I knew this was going to make things even worse with my family, and I didn't know if we would ever be able to repair our relationship. So that's where things stand now. My sister's furious, and my parents and brother are still on her side. I'm trying to focus on my own life and not let their negativity get to me, but it's hard. I miss my family, but I also know I did the right thing for myself.